Elizabeth, a passionate literature teacher, lived in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, a region known for its beautiful beaches and vibrant artistic communities. Her husband, James, was a respected fishing captain whose work often kept him at sea for long periods, leaving Elizabeth alone at home. On a summer evening, Elizabeth decided to walk along the beach to enjoy the sunset, a frequent activity for her to reflect on her life and find inspiration for her classes. During her walk, she met Michael, a visitor from New York and Cape Cod for work. Michael was charming, well-educated, and shared Elizabeth's love for literature, sparking an immediate connection between them. They talked for hours, lost in discussions about their favorite authors and books. Elizabeth felt alive and stimulated in a way she hadn't felt in a long time, creating a strong emotional connection with Michael. Returning home, Elizabeth was confused about her feelings. She loved James, but couldn't deny the special connection she felt with Michael. She convinced herself it was just a casual encounter and decided not to mention it to James. James, a simple and loving man, totally dedicated to Elizabeth, noticed something different in her upon his return, but attributed it to work fatigue and decided to prepare a special dinner to cheer her up. In the following days, Elizabeth couldn't stop thinking about Michael. She was surprised to find herself constantly thinking about him and desiring to see him again. Michael, having left his number with Elizabeth, contacted her, inviting her for coffee in Nantucket. Feeling torn between loyalty to her husband and curiosity about Michael, Elizabeth accepted the invitation, telling herself it was just a meeting between friends. In Nantucket, they explored the town together, visiting charming cafes and art galleries, sharing laughter and deep conversations. Elizabeth felt increasingly attracted to Michael and began to question her marriage with James. Elizabeth started making excuses for her trips to Nantucket, claiming they were work meetings or gatherings with fellow teacher friends. James, busy with his fishing season, believed Elizabeth's excuses, but felt a growing unease. Michael maintained an air of mystery about his life. He revealed little about his work in New York and often changed the subject when his past was mentioned, sparking Elizabeth's curiosity. As these secret meetings continued, Elizabeth found herself more and more involved. She began living a double life, torn between her routine with James and her clandestine meetings with Michael. Over time, Elizabeth began to notice inconsistencies in Michael's stories. While he talked about his work and life in New York, certain details didn't add up, raising Elizabeth's suspicions. At one of their meetings, Elizabeth confronted Michael about these inconsistencies. Initially evasive, he eventually revealed that he was actually a writer seeking inspiration for his next book, and that Cape Cod had always been his refuge for writing. relieved, but also a bit disappointed that Michael had hidden this from her. Elizabeth began to question what else he might be hiding, and whether she really knew him. Despite these revelations, Elizabeth felt even more connected to Michael, now sharing a love for writing and literature. They spent hours discussing possible plots and characters for Michael's book. At the same time, Elizabeth felt increasingly guilty for hiding her relationship with Michael from James. She realized she was emotionally drifting away from her husband. James began to notice a change in Elizabeth's behavior. Concerned about her distancing, but attributing it to work stress, he planned a surprise trip for them, hoping to rekindle the flame of their marriage. Torn when James announced the surprise trip, Elizabeth realized how much effort James was putting into their marriage and felt even more guilty about her affair with Michael. During the trip, Elizabeth tried to reconnect with James, but her thoughts kept returning to Michael. She felt lost between the comfort of her marriage and the excitement of her relationship with Michael. James, trying to understand Elizabeth's distant behavior, asked if something was wrong. Avoiding the truth, Elizabeth attributed her behavior to tiredness and work stress. Returning from the trip, Elizabeth decided to end her relationship with Michael, feeling she needed to dedicate herself to her marriage. She met with Michael to explain her decision, hoping he would understand. Surprisingly, Michael reacted poorly to the breakup, revealing that he had truly fallen in love with Elizabeth. He pleaded for her to reconsider, but Elizabeth remained firm. Elizabeth returned home, hoping to focus on her marriage and forget Michael. However, she found overcoming such intense feelings was not as simple as she had hoped. After weeks of trying to readjust to life with James, Elizabeth received a letter from Michael. In it, Michael revealed that he came to Cape Cod not just for literary inspiration, but also because he was following clues about his biological family, from whom he had been separated in childhood. The letter brought an emotional complexity Elizabeth hadn't expected. She felt torn between helping Michael in his personal quest and staying true to her decision to dedicate herself to her marriage with James. Elizabeth decided to meet Michael to talk about the revelation. During the meeting, Michael explained that some clues had led him to Cape Cod, and that his connection with Elizabeth was initially part of his investigation. Feeling betrayed, Elizabeth confronted Michael about the truth of their relationship. Michael admitted that though he had approached her initially for personal reasons, his feelings for her had become genuine. Elizabeth returned home confused and hurt. She began to question everything about her relationship with Michael and to reflect on what she really knew about James. Her ever-present but often distant husband, James noticed Elizabeth's unrest and asked her what was wrong. She decided not to reveal anything about Michael, but the tension between them increased, creating an emotional barrier James couldn't understand. Consumed by confusion and guilt, Elizabeth decided to distance herself from both men to take time to reflect. She traveled alone to a retreat in Vermont, seeking clarity and peace of mind. During the retreat, Elizabeth dedicated herself to writing and meditation, deeply reflecting on her feelings, her marriage, and what she truly wanted for her life. Meanwhile, James, feeling Elizabeth's absence, began to investigate the reason for her sudden trip. He discovered indications of her relationship with Michael, leaving him devastated and feeling betrayed. Elizabeth returned from the retreat, determined to confess everything to James and to end her relationship with Michael definitively. She believed she needed to be honest with James, regardless of the consequences for their marriage. When confronted, James expressed his pain and disappointment, but also revealed his willingness to understand and forgive. He admitted that he also had his faults, being often absent. Elizabeth and James had a frank and emotional conversation, deciding together that they wanted to try to save their marriage. They agreed to seek couples counseling and dedicate more time to each other. In the following months, Elizabeth and James devoted themselves to intense couples counseling. They explored the complexities of their relationship, addressing the communication and absence issues that had infiltrated their marriage over the years. Elizabeth struggled with her own guilt and regret. She dedicated herself to writing a journal, using writing as a way to process her feelings and learn from her mistakes. James, feeling responsible for part of the distance in their marriage, made a conscious effort to be more present. He rearranged his work schedule to spend more time with Elizabeth, showing his commitment to the relationship. Over time, the couple began to rediscover the love and complicity that originally united them. They learned to value the small moments together, whether a quiet dinner at home or a walk along the beach of Cape Cod. Elizabeth decided to contact Michael one last time, thanking him for opening her eyes to the changes she needed to make in her life. She wished him luck on his personal journey and definitively closed that chapter of her life. Elizabeth and James renewed their vows in an intimate ceremony on the beach, symbolizing a new beginning. They looked forward to the future with hope, aware of the difficulties they had overcome and strengthened by the love and understanding they had rediscovered. A year later, Elizabeth and James lived a more balanced and happy life. Elizabeth published a memoir based on her experience, helping others find strength in times of adversity. James, now more involved in the local community, found a new purpose in marine conservation projects, balancing his love for the sea with his commitment to his family. The couple, now more united than ever, spent their weekends exploring new places together, reaffirming their commitment to each other with every new adventure. On a late afternoon, while walking along the beach of Cape Cod, Elizabeth and James reflected on the journey they had faced. They recognized that, although the path had been difficult, it was necessary to bring them to a place of greater understanding and love. Elizabeth's book became a source of inspiration for many, and she began giving talks on overcoming and personal growth, finding a new passion in helping others. The story of Elizabeth and James became a testament to the strength of love and the importance of communication and forgiveness in a relationship, inspiring those around them to never give up in the face of challenges.